Everything does suck.
Or does it?
Hello?
Oh, hey, Knives. What's that?
You're outside?
Is Scott here?
You know what? He just left.
Really?
Yeah. Sorry.
When I was about 15, I watched Scott Pilgrim vs. the World for the first time. I had heard about it before, but I never really gave it a chance. I thought it looked kind of goofy, a little lame, but I finally sat down and watched it, and I was in love with it. I wanted to get my hands on everything Scott Pilgrim related. I looked at the books, and then I looked at the price of those books, and that wasn't going to happen, at least not right then. So the next best thing, the video game. I saw it was only released digitally for some reason. Whatever. I have an Xbox. I'll just download. Oh. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, was delisted from the Xbox and PlayStation stores on December 30th, 2014. Earlier that year, a playable teaser was released for an upcoming Silent Hill reboot. It was a free demo of a portion of the game, and it ended up being a cultural phenomenon. It was one of, if not the best horror games of the year, and it was only a demo. The full game was shaping up to be something pretty special. And it was being directed by Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro. That sounds awesome! I know what you're thinking. How could this possibly go wrong? Oh. The game was canceled and we never got to see the full release. Ah, well. At least we have PT, right? PT was delisted from the PlayStation Store less than a year later on April 29, 2015. In the case of Scott Pilgrim, there was a licensing issue that caused it to be taken down. In the case of PT, I don't know. Konami just decided, oh, they're not making the game anymore? Better pretend it never happened. Either way, in both scenarios, anyone who didn't happen to download them when they were released will never get to play them. The problems with digital-only releases don't just stop at video games, by the way, far from it. But both Scott Pilgrim and PT are prime examples of why physical releases are better for the consumer and are some of the best arguments for preserving video games as a whole, but that's a whole other topic for a different day. Okay, but that's just games. The pros far outweigh the cons in terms of movies, right? I hear you ask. And, no! The trend of going digital only has been on the rise in the past, 10, 15 years? Especially with streaming services like Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, Disney, Apple, Peacock, HBO Max, DC Universe, CBS All Access, the Discovery Channel? The Discovery Channel. And of course, the streaming service to dominate every other streaming service. The one that will blow every other service out of the water, and the one that definitely won't be bankrupt within a year. Quibi. And look, streaming is great for convenience, but not much else. The quality of anything you stream is going to be lower automatically. And maybe, one day in the future, it'll be up to par with a 4K disc, but as of right now, that's just not the case. Services may claim to offer 4K streaming, but it is inferior to the physical equivalent. And you're definitely not going to get their 4K quality streams if you don't have good enough internet access. Which is another problem. You can't even watch the things you want to watch unless you're connected to the internet. And yeah, Netflix allows you to download some titles, but not others. And even then, you can only get them for like 48 hours, and you have to use Netflix to access them. On top of being worse in quality, I just listed like 11 different streaming services. Hardly any of them will overlap in terms of the content they provide. A big appeal to these streaming services is that you can watch anything they have anytime you want. The catch, though, is anything they have. When Netflix really kickstarted this whole thing, you could pay like $8 a month and watch just about anything, all in one place. I think that was the biggest draw. A lot of big movies and TV shows were all together on one service. But now, with all these other companies taking back their IP, it's going to leave each streaming service with content they themselves either have or will produce. Oh, a side note, by the way, piracy was on a downward trend with the rise of Netflix, but in the last year or so, with all these other companies announcing their own streaming services, people are getting overwhelmed and piracy is actually starting to go up again. Having content spread out across too many services isn't just a problem for streaming either. If you want to digitally download movies, that's a whole other ordeal, with just as many, if not more, third parties to go through. the Apple Store, Microsoft Store, PlayStation Store, Fandango, Amazon, Vudu, Verizon, DirecTV, Xfinity, well, really any major ISP. Now, I know having different movies or shows tied to different launchers isn't the worst thing in the world, and services like Movies Anywhere definitely help by tying most of the movies you buy, regardless of platform, to one place. But that's only most of them, not all of them. And that's another third party you have to go through. Some movies, especially older movies, aren't even available on any digital platform. Pink Floyd's The Wall, Angels in the Outfield, True Lies, Apocalypto, Wild at Heart, or literally any Miyazaki film, just to name a few. Companies like Arrow Films and the Criterion Collection are doing God's work, I swear, by not only giving new life to classic films, but also helping to ensure they never get erased from history. But even in the case of downloaded media, it only exists as long as the platform it's hosted on exists. Movies, video games, music, yeah, I know I haven't talked about that yet, only survive digitally if they're continued to be supported. I kind of brushed over the whole Scott Pilgrim got taken down due to a licensing issue thing. There's a whole website called delistedgames.com dedicated to archiving games that were once on digital stores but have since been removed. The entry about Scott Pilgrim explains that there was no official reason for the game to disappear, but it likely had to do with licensing. No reason has been stated why the game was removed, but there were several parties involved in the licensing and creation of the game. The game contains copyrights from the publisher Ubisoft, the comics creator Brian Lee O'Malley, the comics print publisher Oni Press, the movie adaptations publisher Universal Studios, and the game's soundtrack composer Anna Monoguchi. Keeping the game online would require negotiating and renewing contracts with all parties, and the expiration of these deals is likely why the game was delisted. That's the biggest issue with having digital-only media. If a license holder decides it's not worth it to keep renewing contracts or negotiating deals, they won't, and it'll get removed. It happens all the time with physical media too, but because of the resale market, hardly anyone notices because it's easy enough to get your hands on a copy of something. Now, let's say you've downloaded a game, movie, show, whatever. It may be saved and tied to a bunch of different places, but that's yours forever, right? If none of the other reasons I've given have convinced you to start supporting physical media again, this should. You don't actually own anything you buy digitally. If you buy a DVD, you can lend it to a friend or sell it or even give it away. You can't do that with digital media. It's because when you bought it, you didn't actually buy the movie. You bought the license to play it anytime you want. Now let's get even simpler. Remember when I said that you only have access to your digital library as long as the company who hosts it still exists? So what happens if Amazon, for example, went out of business tomorrow? Well, in an article with The Atlantic, Adrian LaFrance puts it best. In order to keep a film in your collection watchable, there's a constellation of pieces that must be in place. The software that streams the video has to work, the devices you want to use to run that software has to remain compatible with it, and the film itself has to be accessible on that software. None of these things is guaranteed. The films you buy could already at any time automatically disappear from your instant collection. Again, that's right there in the Amazon service terms. That part about the Amazon service terms isn't unique to Amazon, by the way. Let's look at Microsoft's usage policy for digital goods. This is highlighted by Emma Boyle in an article in TechCrunch. Except to the extent required by applicable law, it has no obligation to provide a re-download or replacement of any material, digital goods, or applications previously purchased. So if you want to upgrade devices and you want to re-download anything, Microsoft can just say, yeah, nope. And when it comes to those digital goods that they mentioned, by the way, may stop distributing any digital good or add to or reduce the capabilities for any digital good at any time. So they can stop selling any digital good on their service at any time they want. No biggie, we already went over that. Here's why you should be concerned. You may lose access to or capabilities of digital goods, or have the nature of your access changed if we cancel or terminate the applicable service or cease supporting the applicable device. You don't own anything you buy digitally. And you may be thinking, physical media is dying, and the future will be all digital all the time. And yeah, fair enough. Everything I've talked about in this video has pointed to just that. But I don't think physical media will ever truly die. Not completely. I mean, just take a look at the music industry. Apple Music and Spotify are the biggest distributors of music today. But the resurgence of vinyl records in the past 10 years really gives me hope for other media. Vinyl was thought to be dead by the late 80s, early 90s, but now most high school and college-age kids have their own record player and record collection. In 2019, vinyl outsold CDs for the first time in 40 years. I think the reason being, outside of aesthetic purposes, is that vinyl is still the best way to listen to music, at least in terms of quality. And I think the best quality of things will survive the longest. So look, it's not all doom and gloom. But I can't help but be a little discouraged when pieces of media, works of art that people have poured years of their lives into, just gets erased from existence. I never got to play Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game. And I likely never will. Physical media won't die completely, but it will never reach the heights that digital has. Because no matter how important the preservation of art is, no matter how important the ownership of the things you purchase is, when given the choice between convenience and quality, most people choose convenience every time.